I've been going over this Triumph gearbox here as I've been discussing recently, and here's the lay shaft. I've done a trial fitting of the gearbox with this, with the added shimming that I put on the end there to stop any side to side movement of the lay shaft, and hopefully keep these two gears out of each other's way, because I can sort of reproduce what I think had been going on here when I was riding it. Basically, the engagement pins on this gear were just making contact with this gear when the lay shaft moved over enough to allow it, and that's what I was hearing and feeling when I was riding the machine. So I think I've got that problem sorted, and those gears are all very good. The whole lay shaft assembly fits into the main engine casing with the gearbox end cover fully home and a couple of screws in and tightened up, and it spins freely, and there's probably just a couple of thou of free end float left, so I'm happy with the fit of that, and that hopefully I've eliminated that roughness that I was experiencing from the gearbox as I was riding it. So that's one problem hopefully out the way. Now, as for occasionally feeling it like it wanted to jump out of third gear, well, I've got the main shaft and the main shaft sliding gear with the two gears responsible for giving us third gear. In fact, it goes that way. There we are. And basically, when this sliding gear is engaged into the gear next to it, the larger one, that gives you third gear. But a close look at this sliding gear reveals that we've got wear on the ends of the engagement dogs there. Some of them are quite rounded, and I think a replacement would be a big help. The gear that engages with the dogs inside that one are actually in pretty good shape, but that just occasional threat and hint of it jumping out of third, I think, tell me it's time that we dealt with this. In fact, I'll stick with the first time and it that way, and it's these. Actually, these are even more worn than on the other end, so it won't do any harm to change this gear. That's them, sorry, my mistake there. Those are the ones that are very sort of worn and rounded looking, and they are the ones that go in there. Now, the selector fork obviously is responsible for holding that gear in position when it's in third gear, and if we look here, we can see I've got the selector cam plate, and here we've got the track that is responsible for the main shaft selector, and we've got, that's the position that the selector is in the track when we're in third gear. And look at that incredible play that we've got there. I don't think that's helping. We've got a worn track in the cam plate, I would think. The track for the lay shaft selector fork is a much neater, closer fit. This one is quite sloppy, so I think we've got a worn cam plate. So that's two things. We've got the sliding gear and the cam plate. Then we've got this bearing, that this is the bearing from inside this end cover, which the main shaft runs in, and although it spins freely enough, we've got quite a bit of side to side movement between the inner race and the outer race, and if I fit that on the main shaft, actually like this, you see that I can waggle that bearing outer race around quite a bit relative to the inner race, and I can actually move it side to side by probably a good 10 thou or so. So that would allow the main shaft a little end float, which could also compound third gear, and it's trying to jump out of gear. So we've got the sliding gear, the cam plate and the bearing. We've also got this. Now, this, bear with me a second, this is a little spacer or distance piece which fits on the main shaft before it goes into the bearing. So that helps position the main shaft laterally in the gearbox. I also notice that this little distance piece has got very sharp raised edges, so it's obviously been allowed to spin and wear inside the gearbox, and there's every possibility that it might not be quite as wide as it should be. Now if it was a little bit wider than it is, and it quite likely would have been, that would have pushed the whole lot closer, the main shaft and those two gears, that little bit closer to the sliding gear, which is located laterally by the selector fork, a little closer together. So you got all those things going on. You got the wear on the gear itself, you've got the distance piece perhaps being a little narrower than it should be, we've got the play and slop in the bearing, which a new bearing will take care of, and what I believe to be wear in a track of the selector, the cam plate. So 4 things there all coming together, I would say, that are contributing and causing that threatening to jump out of third gear, which it probably sooner or later would start doing, and then it would round off the dogs considerably more, and before long it wouldn't be able to stay in third gear. So I'm sort of looking at probably changing these 3 components here, the bearing, the distance piece and the main shaft sliding gear, and also the gearbox cam plate, because I suspect that that track for the main shaft selector fork could be very worn. Certainly a lot more slop in it side to side than when I try the same selector in the layshaft selector forks track. So 4 things there to change. I don't think they're going to break the bank, and I think with those all dealt with and attended to, and the layshaft back in with this little bit of shimming that I've got on it there, I think we'll have a gearbox that will be in tip-top shape and good to go once more.